We're rolling.
Really become a little closer to the sound.
Oh, sure.
Well, hello everybody. I want to welcome you to, this technically is our first event of the summer because we had a really cool event at the Commons earlier this week with Cynthia Newberry-Martin with her beautiful new book, The Art of Her Life. And so it's just come out this week. It's phenomenal. It's one of my favorite books of the year, so take a look at it. You can order it from any bookstore, but hopefully you order it from mine. It's on our website, and we do have, I think we have signed copies.
Plenty of signed
Great,
copies.
she came in, so we got signed copies for that event. So just a couple announcements. We've been asked, as you can probably see, no, the public park is not designed yet, it's not ready yet, but they've approved the design and it's going to be spectacular. So I'm guessing maybe in the fall, hopefully they'll start with that, and it's going to be lovely, including having one of those European-style bathrooms. So we're really excited about that. And then upcoming events. If you check our website, we've got upcoming events, a lot of really good events. The very next event this week, I'll be in conversation with Michael Schulman, who's got a great new book out called Oscar Wars. And that's going to be, it's just part of the film festival. It's going to be not our normal time. It's June 17th at 3 p.m. And I'm really looking forward to that. So if you're able to come in between the movies and everything else, please come. But as always, all of our events are live streamed. If you can't come to an event, the recording will be available shortly thereafter. And then the rest of the events you can see on there. I did want to mention one other one, which is the Green Witch's Guide to Magical Plants and Flowers. And not only is this a really cool new book, but I can't believe I got to meet Susan. I can never say her last name right. Ottaviano, who was the lead singer of Book of Love. I just love their music, and if you don't know them, Google Book of Love, and you'll be addicted to their music as well. So she's coming. She'll be doing a little singing too. She's got some food she's bringing and some drinks and whatnot. And then two other things. The Hebridean Baker is back with a new cookbook, July 12th during Bear Week, 5 p.m. at the Merheed Horse House. Details on our website. And then Boston store, not open yet, sometime in August, but August 1st we have a special event with Tom Parada and Julia Glass, and it will be at our building, 300 Pier 4 Boulevard, with a reception at Woods Hill Pier 4 Restaurant afterwards. So we look forward to seeing you there. Okay, so now I'm very excited to have two people I really like very much, and who've been here both before. The first is Stephen Rowley, who's best-selling author of 4 novels, including Lily and the Octopus, a Washington Post notable book of 2016, the editor and NPR Best Book of 2019, and The Guncle. Hilarious, and I love The Guncle. Finalist for the Thurber Prize for American Humor and Goodreads finalist for Novel of the Year. His fiction has been translated into 20 languages. He resides in beautiful Palm Springs, California, with his equally talented husband, Byron Lane. Chris Castellani probably needs no introduction. He's the author of 3 previous novels, the trilogy A Kiss from Madalena, The Saint of Lost Things, and All This Talk of Love, and The Art of Perspective, a book of essays on the craft of fiction. And of course, which I'm just now noticing is not on here, but the book we all love, Leading Men, the author of Leading Men, and which has been optioned for a movie, and we're all looking forward to at some point seeing that. So he's also I welcome to the stage Stephen and Chris.
Thank you. Hi. Do you have a good side? I don't know that I have a good side. I'm not going to look into the. Hi. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you for being brave enough to sit in the front.
So we haven't talked at all about how this is going to
We
work.
were going to meet beforehand and plan our conversation.
Yes.
Instead, we went to tea and had. What did we have?
We had a Skinny Lust.
Skinny Lust.
Skinny Lust.
That was the name of our drink.
So you know what?
Stephen, can I ask you, as they say in the South, can you hug up a little and like move your chairs a little closer just for the live stream?
Almost like we like each other.
Almost like you like each other. Perfect. Thank you so much.
IRL.
But you did say, well, first I want to correct the record because Jeff mentioned that Steve was a finalist for the Thurber Prize, but he was the winner of the
Oh, sorry. I'm just reading what somebody sent to me So
So take it up with my publisher.
yes.
And I think just recently it was announced that the Celebrants landed as number 12 on the New York Times bestseller list.
Yay!
Super
Today,
exciting.
Today, wonderful.
Yep.
That's
So
great.
I think this is both the chance to hang out with you, but also a little victory party, right? for you and for
Do
this
you
book.
serve skinny lusts?
We will now.
We will now.
But you said you didn't. Go ahead.
You guys are gonna get sick of me. I mean, it's been a year. It's also a Read with Jenna Today show.
Oh, I forgot about
book
that
club
already.
pick.
Okay, yes.
So
sorry.
it's been quite a couple months.
Yeah. So you said that you weren't planning to read, right? You wanted to just have.
No, I'm going to tell you a story.
Yes,
You know what?
okay.
And this is being live. I've got myself in trouble with a few live streams already this week where I did not know. Fortunately, you're right here and I know what's happening. But for those who don't know, my husband, Byron Lane, is also a writer. He had a book come out the same day as The Celebrants, which are called Big Gay Wedding, which a lot of people want to know if we planned it that way. And the answer is...
Did you and your partner plan?
This is what we should have done while we were
question off
slurping
of
down
this.
skinny love.
Right. I did prepare questions just
Okay,
so people
good,
know.
good.
I did not. I did my homework.
I was just going to tell the story how I got in
yes,
trouble.
please,
Because listen,
please.
the damage is already done, so I might as well repeat.
Right.
But what? So his book, Big Gay Wedding. So
Yes.
there was a question for. So we were touring. The first week of tour we did together, and so thank you for being up here with me because the hot seat is lonely by yourself. But so there was a question like, was it based on your own big gay wedding? And of course, we had a very little gay wedding because we got married during COVID, and we had a conversation like, should we wait? If we get married now, your family can't come, my family can't come. And then we leaned into each other and we were like, that sounds great.
Now's the time.
And I told that story. My two sisters were watching. Live stream. We didn't mean you.
So in a way, Big Gay Wedding is kind of like a horror story. Is that
Well, I don't know, like,
is that what
listen,
Byron's book is about?
We're giving him a lot of airtime, and clearly he did not care enough to be here tonight. No, he's home taking care of our dogs, Raindrop and Shirley, who you've met.
I love Raindrop and Shirley. Yes, they're the cutest.
They're all
and I was saying they would be so happy in Provincetown because this is a dog.
This is a dog
lover's
town.
Yeah.
So I've been here for 3 hours
Yes.
now, I think, and I'm looking at real estate. Is that the right decision?
Yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
All right.
So a lot more books.
Talk.
I think, too. Yes.
I may listen. Are you hiring? I may take a job. So I said that, and then the other story that got me in trouble was I invited my mom to the Thurber Awards, which are in Columbus, Ohio. Those who don't know, James Thurber was a humorist, probably most famous for The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, but a New Yorker, a longtime New Yorker writer, cartoonist, also famous humorist. I invited my mom to the Thurber Awards. It was a big deal. So previous winners are like David Sedaris, David Rakoff was one. Last year was James McBride, Trisha Lockwood. I think so. Like some big, Jon Stewart, Trevor Noah, like some big. When I met her there, she said, she greeted me by saying, "I've read all the finalists, and I know who's going to win."
You showed her.
And I told that story the other night. And what I forgot to include was that, of course, she wanted me to win, and that she was rooting for me to win.
Right,
But
right.
she was backing another horse.
Who did you think was gonna win?
This woman, Annabelle Monahan, who's a brilliant essayist,
Oh, okay.
is an actress too as well, and it was her second time.
Oh,
as,
wow.
And as a finalist, it was her second time. She was a finalist like 6 or 7 years ago.
Right.
And I think as a mom, she was like, "Well, they're not going to bring this poor woman to Ohio a
Right.
second time to
Right.
humiliate her."
Right. So it was so it was a legit award where they didn't tell you ahead of time.
They did not tell me
'cause
ahead of
I've heard
time,
of
and it was like
these other literary awards. They tell you. Ahead of
No,
time,
no,
but
they
this-
did not.
yeah, okay,
I did
that's
not know.
exciting.
And in fact, they
Glad to hear
lined
they
us
have
up.
that
It was
integrity.
it was like a 2-hour show.
Yeah.
Like we're competing against the Tony Awards tonight. So I will say, like there was a big opening number, a musical number. People were singing.
Wow.
We were in a like box seats, which is very like, how's the show, Mr. Lincoln?
Wow.
And then I was wearing this suit, which I was very proud. I thought I was feeling good that night, but throughout the like red carpet and everything beforehand, people were like, "Wow, I wish I was brave enough to wear something like that. And at first I was like, I was just so happy. I was, oh, it's very easy. You put one leg in one fabric tube, you put your other leg in the other fabric tube, and you're halfway there. You know, slip the jacket on, and you're good to go. And by the 9th or 10th time I heard that, I was like, I don't think this is a compliment.
Right, exactly. Well, I saw the pics and I thought you looked great.
Thank you.
Yes, you did, and very brave.
That's only one skinny lust talk.
Right, exactly. So did you want to talk a bit about, I have to ask you the basic questions, like where did this book come from? Right? I know that when we were talking, because Steve and I have known each other for a few years, and I remember when you were talking about this book, when you were writing it, you the first thing you would say was, you would mention the Big Chill, right? So I was curious, is that where it started, or like did you say I want to update the Big Chill or write another Big Chill, or did it start from something else and then that came to you later? Like, tell us about the origin and how
yeah, do a lot of people remember The Big Chill, this movie from 1983, 1984. Movie about college friends who reassemble upon the death of one of their own, and it's very much about middle-aged ennui and what the back half of our French feelings, or whatever it's called, the back half of our lives are going to look like, and a lot of like stressing about lost dreams of youth, and our lives are they over? Anyway, all the characters in that movie were 35 years old.
Right.
And as someone who was turning 50 that year, I was like, this is not good. And so I think that, I sort of wanted to, because the title, The Big Chill, actually referred to, first of all, I thought it meant the body. I thought like being dead was the big chill, like the body's on ice.
Yeah.
But it actually referred to that sort of middle period in our lives when people were apt to be married. They had their kids, they had a job, probably one job, they were working until pension and retirement. They had bought a house, which is something people used to be able to do. And not a lot changed until the kids left the house and you were empty nesters and you got your pension and retirement. And so it was that stretch where it didn't feel like a lot happened. But nowadays...
Also known as life.
Also known as But it really feels like now, like people are more, often have multiple marriages or blended families. Middle period of life, like we're certainly likely to have many careers or certainly work for many different companies. The idea of one job until pension is not true anymore. And so it seemed like this middle period of life is where all the great sort of stories were, instead of just waiting for retirement and death.
Right.
So that was one thing. But I do think, so The Celebrants is it is about a group of college friends who lose one of their own to suicide right before graduation in 1995. And after attending his funeral, where they hear all these incredible things said about their friend, they make this pact, because they think if maybe he had been alive to hear all of these things said about him, that he might have made a different choice. And so they make a pact to reassemble at a moment's notice, because they're all about to scatter to the wind upon graduation. And they will throw each other their funeral while they're still alive.
The living funeral,
so they're forced to hear their own eulogies, hoping that will reignite some passion for life and for living. And I don't think any of them think they're going to ever trigger the pact, but decades after decades, like life starts to intercede.
Did that idea come from somewhere? The idea of a living funeral, or a pact, or anything like that, because that's not from the Big Chill, obviously.
That's not from the Big Chill. This is like Big Chill plus.
Right. Exactly.
No,
it's such a great structure. It's such a great premise for a
so
book.
when I had watched The Big Chill, that was in the first couple weeks of the pandemic, and like we were all looking at Netflix, and I almost said the A word at an independent bookstore event, but let's say Hulu.
Right.
Peacock.
Right.
For things to watch that I might find comforting. So that was like early in the pandemic, but as it sort of raged on, and I think there's going to be a lot of talk. I don't know if you feel, but you work with a lot of other writers. There's going to be a lot of talk about how artists and writers in particular, I think, are going to address the past couple years.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think like this is very much a pandemic response. Although I will say, I conveniently skipped the years 2019 to 2023 because I'm not ready to go back.
Right.
Like, in fact, COVID's not mentioned in the book one.
Yeah.
But the idea of telling people what they mean to you now instead of waiting, I think was very much a response from me.
Absolutely.
How I sort of like, you know, every time you come to visit, I'm like, Christopher, I love you. I love you. And you're like, I know. But it's kind of turned me into kind of a mush.
That's great.
In a way.
And also that that not only expressing those feelings, but doing it in person, right? And doing it, having experiences with your friends, which they all do at these living funerals. It's not just they sit around; they have these crazy adventures.
Life experiences.
It's not just that. And so
it's
I think that in a way feels like a response to the pandemic is how much we missed from those.
Well, what I missed most was travel.
Yeah,
I miss theater and concerts and art, but even like small intimate gatherings, like dinner party. You know, like those were the sort of the things I miss. So these small, somebody gets a destination funeral, somebody gets a surprise funeral. It starts to go off the rails a little bit before something underscores the seriousness of the pact and sort of draws them back to why they had made it originally.
Exactly, it's so great. I do have a question about the the group of friends, because I was wondering about your thought process around like the demographics, because they're gay, they're straight, they're women, it's a whole mix of people. So I wondered how you how you went into the thinking of that, because I was thinking about as a writer, mind
of a heterosexual
no, not that. God knows, I don't want to go down that road. But I think that like writers now, I think rightly are being challenged in a good way to be more expansive in what we write about, and both kind of like being put on notice that you can't just write about anybody. Like meaning like if you're going to write about a person from I think the main character, one of the Georges is Columbia, right? Yeah. And so if you're going to write about
not the university,
right. So you're kind of you have to kind of
one
do
of the
it
characters is Japanese, and
exactly.
I thought a great deal about that, and in fact, there is an evolving conversation about writers and who has the ability to tell what story and whatnot. So a Japanese woman is a character in this. It's a group of friends. You want the group to feel like like my group, as robust and interesting as the people that we are friends with in real life.
Right.
I wouldn't write a book singularly about a Japanese woman. That wouldn't be my place to tell that story. But in assembling a group of characters, and not only is the challenge in writing something like this about making it diverse, it's like, how do you create characters out of whole cloth and then build these relationships and these friendships that feel sort of lived in and time worn, and there are inside jokes, but that hopefully in a way that don't exclude the reader, but resentments, crushes, all these things that over decades of friendship are likely to exist.
Did you have a group like that?
I do. Oh yeah. Before I just want to say too, I was like, this is the first book where I employed sensitivity readers.
Oh, okay.
And so I did have someone, like each of the characters, sort of read it with me and discuss. What culturally, like someone might react in a situation like this, what their family might have been like that would bring them, like what generational traumas might they be carrying forward. It's a comedy though. I swear to God, it's a comedy. And I have an award to prove it. And so I do. I went to Emerson College in Boston. These characters went to Berkeley, but I went to college right in Boston, and I do have friends, and they are still amongst some of my closest friends to this day. And I think there is something truly special about those long-time friendships, people who knew you before,
before the big show.
Before the big show. Well, no, but when you had youthful dreams, and before your life, these sort of question marks about your life get locked into place. Who are you going to marry? What are you going to be? What are you going to do? Where are you going to live? And then know you now and still love you now, even though some of those, data points have been filled in. And oftentimes those two versions of yourself are very different. And it's those longtime friends that I think can help reconcile the two slightly different versions of yourself.
And call you on things, like I knew you when you were doing this. Like, you can't do that now.
I literally said that to somebody the other day. I was like bullshitting me, and I was like, you used to tap me on the shoulder in film class and ask for gum.
Exactly. Well, it's funny. I was thinking, because I was reading like online, people are posting about because I mean this friendship group is not just united by the fact that they love each other. They're obviously united by a tragedy, right? And I was reading online that people were posting about people were posting after reading your book, posting about having lost somebody in high school or in college that was in their friend group, either from a car crash or some horrible rare disease or something like that, and how it bonded them with their groups of friends. I had that experience myself. I had a friend who died young, just after high school. That was part of our friend group, and there's some kind of connection that I have. We were friends, but he wasn't my best friend, right? But he was part of our group, and because we lost him, it completely connected us forever, right? So I think you just really tapped into something that I've never really heard anybody read about or anybody write about. I never read anything about it or seen anything about it. That kind of unique bond that happens when friends share this kind of tragedy.
So I didn't even think about that until this moment, but the guy who was voted best looking in my high school class was in a motorcycle crash at like 24. And there is something about the energy of that guy who was like prom king and best looking, and it just seems like such a life force that they're going to go on forever. And when we realize at a young age that nothing is guaranteed, I think that, again, this is a fun and hopefully very funny.
Well, do you want to talk about that? Do you want to talk about the humor in it?
I do think, I'll get back to it in a second. But I do also think there is something about losing friends or friend grief that we don't address. Like if you say you lost a parent or you lost a sibling or a husband or a wife, it's like there's context around that, right? You sort of know, like other people, even though they don't know you, can put that loss into context. But we have many friends for many things. Some we see every day, some we see only once every few years, or not some we have are only know from the internet or something. So when you say you lose a friend, it could mean many different things. And also the weird thing about being like truly middle-aged now, not 35 middle-aged, is that I have friends who are 25 years older. I have friends who are 25 years younger. There's no real deal with when I can expect to lose friends. And so I think, I think it's sometimes losing these relationships can be harder than a familiar way, depending on your, the individual.
They imprint on you. Those kinds of you think about what I always think about what my friend Scott, like what would his life look like right now, and I think about the people who were my friend who were in our little group, and you just say his name and immediately it changes the air, and so I just thought that was just again something that we don't really hear much about. And so talk about the humor a bit, because it seems to be a theme in all of your books that there's humor and loss intertwined. Like it seems like in basically everything you've written, though that's kind of your, I hate this term, but special sauce, right?
My special sauce now is skinny.
Skinny loves, right? Exactly. So where do you think that comes from? That that way that you can kind of, I mean, it's a really impossible question to ask you, like where that kind of things comes from. But it seems like, do you know when you set out? Maybe this is a way of asking. When you set out to write a book, okay, I'm going to write a book and it's going to be about loss, but I'm going to intersperse it with humor. Or is that just kind of how you?
I don't know.
Is that your world? Is that you yourself?
I think when I won the Thurber Prize, I wanted to get on stage and be like, haha, I fooled you all. This is a book about grief.
Right.
And because that was for the Gunkel particularly.
Right.
People read the Gunkel. And so, I felt like a little bit of fraud accepting a humor award, but hopefully the books are very funny. But I do give great thought to that balance, the balance of heart and humor in the books. And honestly, sometimes it's like going through with a scalpel, because if you write a scene and it's one or two jokes too many, it can throw off the whole balance of what you're trying to say with the scene. And conversely, if you go too long without giving the reader the ability to take a breath with a laugh, with a joke, it can weight the scene very seriously in the opposite direction. And so I do sort of give great thought to the balance, but
which is
why?
Just good storytelling.
I hope. But why? I don't know, other than to say that humor has always been the way through. for me.
Yeah.
As they say, none of us are making it out alive, so
Right,
you might
right,
as well
right.
laugh.
Sorry.
And then with this book, yeah, don't touch me. With this book, particularly, like, you know, it's about a group of friends. What do friends do when they get together?
Right.
Drink. But
Right.
after that,
Right.
they,
Right.
you know, they laugh.
Right. Yeah.
And so, yeah.
That's great. And we just talk a little bit about the, and then we'll ask, we will get to questions. I
Think of questions,
Yes.
please.
The way you sort of structured it around these, I just thought it was really smart. I mean, again, not really a question, but like structuring it around.
Can you hear in the back? He thought it was really smart.
Just structuring it around. It was like four, like almost like 4 weddings and a funeral,
Yeah.
right? It's like these
It's 4 funerals and a wedding.
4 funerals and a wedding, right? And so it kind of it gives the book this kind of this grounding, this structure, and every single review that I read said that.
Because I haven't read that.
Okay,
But
good.
Trend gently,
Yes,
because
yes,
I don't
yes.
always like to
that you really stuck the landing, right? And that the ending is what really gives the book. I mean, you know, obviously there's a lot of great stuff between first page and the last page.
So will you
but
read the last chapter
right,
aloud?
right. But like that it manages to have that blend of being like satisfying, like heart-rending, and also uplifting at the same time, which is kind of the trifecta that you want for an ending. So I was just curious whether, again, the same boring question, like did you already know the ending when you were starting it, or did it evolve? Like, and yeah, you don't want to reveal the ending, but take too much about it. But I'm curious if that if the ending was also a part of the beginning of the process, or did it come to you?
No, I am what they call in the biz a pantser.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
you know?
Same. Mm-hmm.
And so I write to discover, and it's often because I'm working through something in myself. In my case, again, this is going to seem like such a downer, but I did lose one of my best friends from college to breast cancer, and so working through that, you know, which I started in the Gunkel a little bit, and because she left behind a 6-year-old son, and then exploring further here. I always know the beginning. I kind of know broad strokes what will happen at the very, very end. But between then and there, because listen, the hardest part for me about this job is butt in chair. I hate it. I hate it. I'd much rather look at that. I'd much rather be doing this, you know, forever. And I know tremendous outliners. You do too, I'm sure, that they outline everything to, you know, within an inch of its life before they write a single word. But to me, that feels like then factory work when it comes to sit down and assemble. Yep. And the only way, this sort of encouragement for me to show up to work in the morning is if there's room for, if I don't know what's going to happen. Right. Because then I'm kind of like, oh, what will happen today? Anything. Anything.
It's both terrifying, but it's the only thing that is actually enjoyable.
About the
finding
process.
out what happens.
And so the structure of the final section, I did not know. I did not know where it would take place. I did not know what event it would take place. Okay. But I sort of knew by the last few pages, I sort of knew where I wanted to leave these characters.
That's great.
And so the rest of it is about discovery, but you know, it is, you know, we're known procrastinators, writers. I don't know if are you this way. I'm like, oh no, we're out of almond milk. I should go to the store for 9 hours.
Of course. You do anything not to actually do it. Of course. Absolutely. And then then we'll have one more question, and then we'll turn it over. Which is, we were saying how like everyone wants to know about Jenna, right? So tell us how that happened.
So for anyone who doesn't know, it's these sort of like celebrity-driven book clubs have really revolutionized the publishing business. It drives like a lot of sales now. So Jenna, Good Morning America has one, and Reese Witherspoon has one, and we all know, and even like Emma Roberts and the Bellatrix. There's like a bunch of these, and so it's a coveted little slot, you know, for a writer, and
it's one of the very few things that really moves the needle immediately. It seems.
And so. Poor Byron. Back to when Byron and I were doing this together. There was a question in the audience. It was like, I want to know, you know, take a step by step. Where were you when you found out you got the Jenna call? And then Byron, where were you when you found out Stephen?
Oh my God!
And I'm like, poor Byron. It's like, Stephen, you tell us how awesome you are, and then Byron, you tell us how awesome Stephen is too. But I will say, and I don't know if it's the same for every writer, but I've known for some time. In fact, I knew when I saw you last night.
Oh, really?
Sorry to say.
Yeah.
But I found it
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, I
that was
found out
February.
Yeah, in
Wow.
December.
Okay.
I think it was December.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. No wonder you're in such a good mood. Yeah.
And they put the fear of God into you, you know, because
Right.
part of the thing is the reveal and the secret and, and all
yeah.
that stuff. So
Yeah.
I had to really, it's the longest I've ever kept a secret. Like,
Right.
like I'm not
Right.
good at it.
Right.
I don't like it. I don't
Yeah.
recommend it for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Especially if we
exciting.
enjoy a cocktail because I get
Right.
chatty.
But did she call you, or did the
I had, and
big client
again, I don't
agent?
know that this is true for everybody, but
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to, I had like an hour Zoom with her where she and I just discussed the book
that's
as if
so
we were in a
fun.
2-person
Oh, I didn't
club.
know that.
And I had
That's
literally
neat.
like just turned it in. I don't know,
Wow.
she's got spies,
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
got,
yeah.
I don't know how she
Yeah.
got a copy.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wasn't happy about it in a minute. At first I was angry at my publisher because
Right.
it hadn't been copy edited.
Wow.
Did you hear that? Like I
Yeah.
need copy edit for this. But I just didn't think it was ready to be read. You know,
Yeah.
we're very sensitive about that.
Yeah, of course.
Because I have
Yeah.
weaknesses as a writer.
Of
Like the
course,
word
yeah.
toward does
Yeah.
not have an S on the end of it. Apparently, I
Anyway,
just like,
also doesn't
yeah,
have an S.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Lay and lie
Right,
are like
right.
two different, but one is secretly the past tense of
Right.
the other.
Yeah, I always have to look it up.
Yeah.
Always, every single
I have
time.
no idea.
Every
So
single
I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
like don't let anyone read it yet. But
Yeah.
she read it, but in that moment, that conversation, it was actually like, it was just kind of joyful. Not in, there was no promise of like that this is being picked. It was just,
Oh.
I had
It
yet.
was like
to
an audition in a way?
I don't know what it
Yeah.
was. To this day, I don't know exactly. Other than I guess I passed. but,
Right.
it was just being able to talk to like a first reader.
Right,
You know,
right.
of that book. And when you write a book, it's yours and yours alone inside
Right.
your head for
Right.
so long. So just the fact that someone else knew these people.
Yeah, that's so cool.
It was just like it was a really fun
That's so cool.
conversation.
Well,
And she reads them herself.
Yeah,
She-
yeah, I believe
she really
it.
does.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I've certainly asked enough questions, so I would love to turn it over to the audience to see if you all have any.
Can you just repeat the question when? Thank you.
Yeah. Does anyone have any?
I have a
Karen.
Yes.
So the gunk, I haven't read the Celebrants yet, but the gunk
It's
was
been out a week. What have you been doing? There was no homework.
trying to finish my homework. So the Gonko was so funny, and it was funny situationally, and also the main character. I think it was first person. Was it first person?
No, it was third
no,
person.
but the
But
main
third person, very
character-
close.
Very close third person. He was so funny. I'm wondering though how you balance sort of the situational. If you think about the balance between situational humor and people saying funny things, because I think we've all read novels that are like clever quip after clever quip, and it can start to feel sort of one note or a little unreal, like a bad sitcom or something.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, you know, as an award-winning humor, if you
Could we frame all the questions?
if you've thought about that balance in humor, in writing humor.
Yeah. So to talk about sort of the balance in writing humor in novel format. First of all, if you do like to get a laugh, it's a terrible return on investment as a comedian because you know it takes years to write a book sometimes, and then publishing is a very long lead industry. So even after the book is done, it could be 18 more months before it's out on the shelf. And then if someone does laugh, you know, I probably won't be there to hear it unless I'm outside the bushes like I do outside of your house. So I'm glad to hear, you know, when people have responded to the humor, particularly in the Gunkel. But yeah, it's something I give a great deal of thought to because you're not writing a Tonight Show monologue, right? Because of that long lead. Joke, you know, anything that's too timely will be out of date by the time the book comes out.
That's true.
And also you want the book to have a long shelf life.
Right.
Hopefully as well. Two, you're also not writing for a sitcom. It can't be that rhythm of setup, joke, setup, joke, because there's an artifice to writing, which you know works maybe in a 22-minute television format, but not in a long form sort of novel. That's not how people talk in real life.
Right.
And so the humor really has to come from character. It has to feel so organic to the character, and that means knowing your character incredibly well, and then the situations you put them in, and knowing the character so well, you will know exactly how he would authentically respond in that situation. But to be able to joke as someone else it's not an easy thing to do. Fortunately, there's enough overlap between me and Patrick and the Gunkel that I gave myself a sort of easier assignment to start. Yeah. But here, like where there's a group and thinking how 5 different voices, like friend groups, they can have a commonality of language, right? And a history and long-running jokes and stuff like that. So some of the language, some of the humor, some of those punchlines are going to sound the same, but also they're 5 individual people. And so they all have to joke or approach humor slightly differently too.
Yeah.
So this was a little more complex.
Right. That's great. That's great. Yeah, I think you can tell when the humor doesn't work when it feels like it's kind of just like slapped onto a character. Like
it's the author's voice
instead
instead of the character's voice. I think that you can always tell when that happens.
Yeah. In the back.
I listened to the Gunkel, and I'm listening to the Celebrants, and I'm just curious. I mean, you're already talking about your voice. You chose to narrate both of them, and I'm wondering if you can. That's such a rare kind of thing. Did everybody say don't do it? I feel like I know you in a way because like you sound so much like who I heard the Gunkel from. So I'm just wondering, particularly since this is so different with the different voices, you can talk about your decision to do that.
Yeah, so I did narrate the audiobook for the Gunkel, and I did choose to do this one again. A wonderful actor, Michael Urie, who narrated my first 2 audiobooks. In which one of the main characters was a dog in the first one, in the octopus, and one of the main characters was Jacqueline Onassis in the second one. I wasn't going to go anywhere near either of those. So thank you, Michael Urie. But there was enough about I had enough in common with Patrick, the character from the Gunkel, where I thought I might like, and there's enough of a high school theater kid in me where I thought I might like to give this a try. But you're right, the publisher made me audition. I had to send in my audition tape too. And then when they said that they would let me do it, I was telling a friend I was super excited, and they said because this was in 2020 or early 2021. They were like, "You're going to put an actor out of work during a pandemic?" But for anyone, Michael Urie's on a TV show with Harrison Ford now. He's bomb. He landed on his feet. So, but I don't know that I'll always do it, but I enjoyed doing this one. They rented me, so I do live in Palm Springs, California, and they rented me a professional recording studio that's right in Palm Springs. For those who read the Gunkel or know Palm Springs know that it's hot, right? And the first thing they have to do is turn off the air conditioning in the recording booth because the microphone will pick up the sound.
Oh no! Yeah.
And so it's me, and then like a director in the headphones who's in New York, and then an audio engineer, mixer at the soundboard on the other side of a window for me sitting in this tiny booth. And not my usual reader, the audio engineer. And anyway, so I couldn't finish the book, and he was like looking at me through the window. He's like, "Oh, you're crying. Your own book, you're crying." And I was like, "I'm not crying. I'm sweating."
Oh my god!
I was also crying, but I didn't want to tell him that.
Oh my god, that's an endurance test.
Yeah, it really is, and it takes a week. It takes like a 5, 8-hour days.
Yeah.
Recording.
We were just talking actually about. So Barbara Streisand is narrating her audiobook. So we were talking to, and she's almost done.
It's 1,000 pages.
It's 1,000 pages. It's taken like weeks and weeks and weeks, and apparently it's this whole drama.
At least she's not a perfectionist, so we could just whip through the pages.
Yeah. So, oh my god, it's incredible. Anyway,
but I hope if you listen to the audio, I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah. Other questions?
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly on the details, but I think the first character enacts the pact, but then the next one and the following one, their friends do it. What's the significance to that? That the friends have to
Enact the pact on behalf of another friend? Yeah. So what are the rules? Who is able to enact the pact? I think it was designed for the person needing the funeral to enact the pact. But again, it is just like, as friends, over the years, something that starts serious gets a little less serious over time. It's just a fun way to sort of snowball it. And it was playing with the, wedding culture and wedding, that industry in a little way. How can I have some fun with the idea of throwing someone their funeral when they're there to, so inherently, like, kind of what is the humor in that? What can I mine that? And it's, delivering a eulogy for someone when they're sitting in the front row making faces at you as they're hearing that, if they wince or something. I think there's a reason why it's usually someone in a box. It makes the delivery much easier. But so it's just, ways to sort of mine and harvest the potential and not feel like, I guess you could think of this as like 5 novellas almost. So you don't want it to feel repetitive, right? Too. And so hopefully it's germane to the story, but yeah, as a writer, I was like looking for different ways to begin sort of each one and make it have its own flavor.
And do you have a favorite of the 5?
Do I have a favorite? I don't want to spoil anyone, but there is an incident at Naomi's funeral.
Right. Okay.
That was the most fun to write. That was the most fun to write.
Very good.
Has anyone here been skydiving? Does anybody here want to go skydiving? If you do, do it before you read this.
That was fabulous.
I have been skydiving, but I'm not going to go.
Am I allowed to ask another
Sure.
question?
Yeah.
You have a really well-known and fabulous editor that you've worked with on at least 2 books, or maybe all of them. I don't know.
3 books now.
3 books. Do you work with her? Do you try to get it completely finished to the point that you think it's done to give it to her? Or are you sharing really rough drafts with her? What's your process working with your editor?
Yeah. What is the process of a writer working with an editor? I'd love for you to hear from your perspective too. The interesting thing about novel writing is it's a very I will say yes I have an editor, and yes I have an agent and eventually a marketing and publicity team behind you. But when you're writing that first draft, particularly, it can feel very solitary. The work feels very solitary. And the interesting thing is, although I am married to another writer, so I'm a slight exception to this, you don't get to see anybody else do the work. I don't know what your relationship with your editor looks like, or your agent. And so I'm always sort of fascinated by that. But I did write a book called The Editor. So if you want to know like the esteem in which I hold editors, that's probably a pretty good indication. This was the first book that I wrote on spec, kind of, in which by that I mean we agreed on the idea together. We sort of had conversations and fleshed out the idea, but it was the first book I didn't write before selling it. And I thought I was made it. I could just write a page and they'll give me money and say, come back in a year or whatever it is. And then I got home and I was like, oh, this is terrible. This is terrible. I actually don't know if I want to work that way again. It's so much pressure then to deliver. And she's always, call me. You're not as alone as you think you are. Like, just call me and we'll work through any things together. But also, I'm terrified to call because I don't want to, admit that I'm struggling or whatnot. And fortunately, I made my way through this, but I do feel very fortunate that it feels like a real collaboration.
That's great.
Have you had good editorial?
Yeah, I've had.
I remember this is being live streamed.
Right, exactly.
So the answer is yes.
Wonderful. I love them all equally. I've had 3 different editors for over 4 novels, and I had one experience like that where I had written for my second novel. I had written an outline of it, and I didn't write any of the actual book itself, just the outline, but a very extensive outline, like 15-page outline with,
single space.
But like stuff about like the themes of the book and all of this, and it was this pretty little package of a book, that we sold it, and I did it. So I felt the same thing. I was like, oh, this is what real writers do, you know? And then I sat down, I didn't have the same experience with YouTube where I sat down to write it and I could not do it. And so I wrote a completely different book and didn't tell anyone. Maybe they won't notice. Right. It was related. It was the same characters, but nothing that happened in the actual book actually happened in the outline.
I love that. So you actually once wrote a very detailed outline, and you were still a pantser.
Yeah, it's still a pantser. Right. Well, because like you said, there was no process of surprise, which is the only good part about writing. yeah. So, but with her point after she read it, I told her before I gave it to her that this is a different book.
Yeah, heads up.
And she was like, okay, well, the only thing matters. The only thing that matters is whether we like it and whether I like it. And so they liked it enough. But that was by far the hardest writing experience I've had. And I don't talk about anything with my agent or my editor before I send it to them. But I kind of wish I had. It sounds like you have well, with this one you definitely did have that kind of relationship where you can at least discuss ideas without necessarily committing to them, but at least discussing it with them. And I'm weirdly protective of it. Like I like the more I talk about an idea, the less I want to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The pressure I feel now, from my publisher, if anything, and they're wonderful. This is not a bad thing.
Right.
This is just publishing is also a business, right? So it's they want to know the next book. It's going to be funny, right? It'll be funny.
Right.
It'll be funny.
Right.
Funny. You got jokes.
Right. They never.
And I kind of feel like I'm out of jokes. Particularly after the past couple of years we have, and this, this one's also it's going well for me, but it's not.
Right.
Not I can't believe we're coming up on another election again. Like I'm not. Right. The world's falling apart.
Right.
Anyway, no more jokes. No, humor is the way through. I said that earlier.
That's right. Exactly.
I said that earlier.
I
All
think
I'll come up with a few more.
Yeah. I think maybe one more question. Is that right? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just on that note, Stephen, I'm curious how much maybe the pressure of the Gunkel success played into your process for Celebrants, or how, I don't know, timing-wise, how far in the publication of Gunkel was with the drafting of this. I'm just curious how that all, let's mine your psyche a little bit more.
So did the pressure of a success like the Gunkel make it harder to follow that up or put extra pressure on me? I will say the only saving grace was the fact that the Gunkel was published during the pandemic still, and I was not able to tour. I did not go, every event was by Zoom. I've done some Zoom book clubs and whatnot. I get a lot of nice comments, people reach out to me on social media and whatnot. I don't think I understood the way people feel about that book until this tour. And so many people will come in. This sounds very self-serving, but the crowds are very. I used to only tour where I had friends or I had family, and those were the people who came, right? And now, I was in the middle of a small town, Massachusetts, last night, and there were 150 people there, and it's like, and they all read the Gunkel. That's why they're there. And then even winning the Thurber, and it's just this magical book that keeps giving. And I think the only way that I avoided just being absolutely paralyzed by imposter syndrome or the pressure to follow that up is that I don't think I understood it, and that really helped. And also, it's been out 2 years, and just winning the Thurber for it last month, or April, 2 months ago. It's been this nice, slowly turning up the temperature on it. It just, it's one of these books that it sells as many copies this week as it did the week it was published. It never was a huge bestseller, never topped the sales charts or whatever, but it has been such a steady performer. And so it just I was able to sort of acclimate and understand the response to that book. I think slowly and over time. And I don't know how some, like a Crawdads or something. I don't know what that feels. I don't know how you ever follow up that.
Right.
But you know what? You sell 8 million books. You don't need to. You don't even have to write another book ever again.
You have to figure that out at some point.
Yeah.
That's great. Great. So I'm sure that you would love to sign books and to talk with people. So thank you so much for being here. Congratulations.
Thank you for agreeing.
Thank you.
So much. It was a joy as always. We did a Zoom for the Gunkel with
we did.
at Unabridged Books.
At Unabridged.
Yes,
that's
that
right.
was so fun. Anyway,
Yeah. And
but
we
this
did a Zoom event here.
But this is better because we're in person and it's beautiful now. And we're in Provincetown.
God.
Yes, exactly. I know.
All right. Is anyone here a realtor?
You can throw a stone and reach one. Okay.
But anyway, thank you for coming out, and thank you for
Thank
supporting
you.
independent
So much.
bookstores.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.